This is my 1952 Singer 1591, and I've had to come to kind of a couple of tough decisions with my moving. My father had given me this machine, and of course it's one I have to keep. So this will probably be my main electric machine now. I've been using the 237s, the Spartan. I had the brother out today, and I was going to keep the 1588, which is a treadle head that I was using as a hand crank. But the other machine that I have to keep is the machine that my grandmother gave me, which is her, and now mine, 9913, that I did just convert to a hand crank. And it sews beautifully. So now hers is from 1934, so I will have a 1934 hand crank, 99, and the 1952 1591. And I had, as you may have seen in one of my recent videos, I had so much stuff in the main room here I couldn't walk. And a studio apartment may end up being like that, and I couldn't stand it. It was driving both me and the dog crazy. So I actually put some furniture outside, and some of the machines are going to have to be packed up and put in storage if I have a smaller place. All of the boxes for the dolls, I'll probably some of the boxes I'll empty out in a new place and then put the boxes in storage, obviously. So I was overcrowded for about 2 days and I couldn't take it. So that led to realizing that these are the two machines that I have to keep with me. So in addition, I have had all kinds of things in my new gray Samsonite. I had the Knitting Nancy's in there, but it ended up bothering me that I couldn't get all of them in there. Then I had, I put some attachments in there, sewing attachments, and that's what's going back in there now. I also had carving materials in there. I put like 10 different things in here. I had just purchased a Singer circular stitcher, which I can use on the 1591. So I will keep that with me. I have 2 buttonholers, and I think the one with my grandmother's machine, I have 2 different years here for buttonholers. But let me just show you how things fit in here. And I'll move out of the light a little bit. This is one of my mother's baskets that I've been keeping my attachments in. And actually the baskets get kicked around a little bit, and I would rather that not happen. Here's the other buttonholer, which is older. So there are 2 buttonholers, the stocking darner, the zigzag attachment, and the blind stitch attachment. I've got the original cords to the 1591, but I'm not sure I need to put those in there. And then I also have, so that all fits in there wonderfully. In the tray, I have 2 complete boxes of attachments, 1 for each machine. I also recently bought a flower foot, which is really for a zigzag machine. And I started to try it out today on the brother, and I just didn't get to it. So now that I have these 2 machines set up, I think this is going to be my attachment case for these 2 machines, and I can use the basket a little bit more delicately because I have to get up here. You know, like I said, they get kicked around a little bit. So so there's the 1591 attachments. And there are the 99s. I have their manuals. And these are great. They're by Dritz. They're bobbin boxes. I have 2 of these for each machine. And I know all of this will fit in here. That with the 99s. Even put them down here. So this full of attachments will, all of this will fit each of the 2 machines. And so I'll fit those in there a little bit better, and then it makes a nice attachment case. I also have a vintage sewing box. I think the name is Wilton, kind of the same company as the cake molds. I think it's Wilton. It's a very nice sewing box. But I'll have 2 machines and 2 sewing boxes. And I should be able to contain everything for both of them. Now, I love this machine as a hand crank. It's just a wonderful machine. Now here is the flower foot. It just says flower stitch. And this is the real cheapy one from Amazon, I think. And I got annoyed with it before I even tried it on the brother. But not because I just got annoyed. Because of the directions. Here's the foot itself. Now, on a zigzag machine, this will make zigzag shapes. And I've been told it will also work on a straight stitch machine, but it will make circles. We're having a heck of a day today, really. If you had only been here. So, the directions, how to use the flower stitch attachment. Now this is what annoyed me. Before setting the attachment, see if your machine has needle position dial and or pressure regulator. So if you have a pressure regulator, it needs to be on the strongest pressure. If you do have a needle position thing, it should be on L or left. Set the drop feed knob at down or 0. Otherwise, set the stitch length regulator at down. Now, I've heard people talk about putting it in neutral. And to tell you the truth, I've never done that. I think it would be above, on this machine, which is a 1591, it would be above the 30 stitches an inch. But to be safer, I don't know, to tell you the truth, this is why this bothered me. Because it doesn't go with any kind of machine. You know, I have 8 full-size machines, 10 full-size machines, and this would be different on each of them. But set it at down or 0. Now I can drop the feed dogs on this, but you can't do that on all machines. Raise needle to its highest position by turning the balance wheel toward you. Now that right there, white machines turn toward the back. Remove presser foot and or foot hole, whatever. See, this came from overseas and their directions are mistyped sometimes. In the condition that the thumb screw is screwed for a couple of turns, Lift the flower stitch attachment lever and hang the fork of the attachment on the thumb screw and place the lever on the needle clamp. Hang the fork. Okay, so it's just like a regular attachment. This arm has to go above the needle clamp, and this right here is where it attaches as a presser foot. Set the required patterns. Set the upper thread tension dial at 1 to 2, and the stitch, and then they have in parentheses zigzag width at the desired width. So before we get to how you actually adjust the foot for different things, I want to see if this will work on a straight stitch machine. Now, it will only make circles if it does, but the reason that would be good is because that Singer circular stitcher that I just showed you in the box, that only goes down to 4 inches. 4 to 10 inches in diameter for a circle. So even though I would need a zigzag machine to make flowers with this, I should be able to make small circles. And I was thinking of using that in quilting, where if I do a 9-patch block, I was going to put a circle in each square of the 9-patch block. You have to excuse my hand. Now, the reason the needle position being at left, I mean, that may be a problem if this is going to hit something. So there it is on the machine. And I'll check how to set it in a minute. I just want to make sure it's not going to hit anything. So it's actually working like the circular stitcher. It's turning the fabric. Okay, so let's go to, and that is on, it is on there correctly. Now, I didn't drop the feed dogs, but I'll do that in a moment. Place fabric under attachment. Position the intended pattern location to center of disc. Okay. Loosen the screw right here. Move the disc in the direction of plus or minus and set the setting mark at the desired position. This thing in the middle is the setting mark. Let me show you this way. I had to get that clearer. This is the setting mark in the center. So it says loosen the screw and move the disc. Let me get the needle up. Move the disc back and forth. Huh. I have no idea what they mean. Oh. Oh, okay. So, that, you see that screw moving? It only moves about 1/4 of an inch total. So we're just going to randomly do a circle anyway, so that's how you do that. Then tighten the screw. So I have this now at minus, at the first minus mark. That's what changes. There are marks here. 1, 2, 3, plus on this side, minus over here. I moved that, when I loosened the screw, I moved that to the first minus mark. That should make a small circle. Hold the end of the needle thread with your left hand. Turn the balance wheel until the needle moves up and down again, to the highest position, then stop the balance wheel. Pull the needle thread, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it just means bring the thread up, I think. While holding, sew a few stitches to lock threads. Cut threads near the end seam, then commence sewing. Okay. I'm going to trim those off afterward. Let me just see what happens when I did not drop the feed dogs, and to do that I have to lift up the machine, and I'm not going to do that right now. So, and you know, there are a lot of machines where you can't drop the feed dogs. We'll do that. I'll change the stitch length to where I think is neutral. I've already got the tension on 2. And look at that, it made a circle. It does work on a straight stitch machine. Now, if this were a zigzag machine, that would have been a flower. And then, of course, you can change threads and stitch width, I believe, on a machine where you can change the stitch width, which I can't do on this machine. So yes, it does work on a straight stitch machine. Now let's loosen it up. I'll make a bigger one. I'll move this over to the plus. And this is without the feed dogs dropped. And I'm sewing through 2 layers of fiddler's cloth, which is a cross-stitch fabric. Now, I don't know. I'm trying to think how you get all the different patterns. I think that's on the back of the paper. And that is exactly what I wanted to do on the quilt. The quilt that I'm thinking of is going to be a 9-patch scrap quilt. And I just wanted to be able to add some circles to it. There you go. That would be great in different threads, polka dots all over the place. So that is, I didn't do it on a zigzag machine, and maybe I'll get one of them out and do another video on the flower foot on the zigzag machine. Much easier to use than I thought. I didn't like the directions. Because, you know, a lot of my machines are vintage machines and they don't have all those selections. But just so you know, it says variations are obtained by loosening the screw, moving the disc, so that the setting mark can face those marks that are plus or minus. The plus direction gives a larger flower, minus gives a smaller pattern. Further variations are possible by changing the zigzag width. And then it gives you different examples. It was like, oh, and twin needle. Now my brother does twin needle. So there's quite a bit you can do with it when you have a fairly modern machine. Now, my 237 does not take a twin needle, but will do zigzag. So, and that's what was annoying, was because you almost need a zigzag machine to do any kind of a flower, but it is a circular stitcher. And now that might be the widest, which is only 1 inch. So on a 4-inch or 5-inch block, I'd have to do several of those. I thought it would go as wide as 2 inches, but I don't think I can. Ooh, what does that do? What does that do? Why didn't they explain that? Let's try it. I think all of these little things combined with a zigzag stitch are what give you all the variations. So as well as going smaller or larger, presser foot up, you can turn that. And it must have, it doesn't really explain it, but it must have, I mean, why else would it be like that? It doesn't explain turning that disc. Let me read it again. Unless that, no, that's not the disc that has to do with the screw. Okay, the disc is F. Variations are obtained by loosening the screw, moving the disc F so that the setting mark can face the indications. This setting mark lines up with these plastic ridges to give you different variations, as best as I can figure out with a straight stitch machine. So that is a brief introduction to the inexpensive flower stitch or flower foot for low shank machines at Amazon. I think I paid about $4, and you can see it's really well made for $4. And I believe it came from China. The box isn't really marked. It's got a barcode on it, but it's not. Yep, looks like China or Hong Kong. Looks like it's Chinese. So there it is. And if I get one of the other machines set up that does zigzag, I would be excited now instead of frustrated to try this on a zigzag machine, which is only going to make my dilemma worse because I can only take a few machines with me, and I have to take these two. So I have to take these two. So maybe I just do circles instead of flowers. We'll see. I'm starting to wonder if I'll ever be able to live with just two sewing machines. Here I got one of the 237s was right here on the floor. So I put it up on the table and I attached the flower foot. I have red thread in there. I have the machine set at the second widest zigzag setting and on the left needle position. And this machine has feed dogs that drop. So I have dropped the feed dogs. Oops. And I didn't get the arm up over the needle clamp. So, excuse my hand again. That happens with the zigzag attachment sometimes as well. Make sure I have that tight. It's on the top. Get the bobbin thread up. Ooh, and we're making zigzags. Now, is that? It looks like it's not sitting evenly, and I don't know if that's the way it's supposed to be. Now that looks horrible. Looks absolutely horrible. And I'm hoping that's because I didn't have it on there tight enough. So this fabric seems to be thicker under this on this machine than it was on the 1591, but the 1591 probably just has a little bit of a higher clearance. Now obviously the first difference is that I had the feed dogs dropped. What the heck? This is, you know, what gets annoying. I used to have all my machines each had their own table. I could sit down at any machine and sew with it, and rearranging is difficult. Let's try this again. Much better. So now I'm going to loosen the screw. I'm going to move this toward a larger circle if I can. And let's see if it does something different when we turn the clear disc. Well, that's interesting. That's like a circle within a circle. But I want to see flowers. So let me loosen this again. Turn the disc again. Tighten the screw. Now that is probably because I didn't, maybe my bobbin ran out. Looks like my bobbin ran out. Okay, I have a new bobbin in. Now really the only difference is whether or not you have a zigzag to give the impression of flowers. And I mean, there are the straight stitch circles and there's the zigzag. It's not a huge difference. Let's see what happens when I put a wider stitch on there. What does that mean? I'm trying to put it into reverse. It won't go in reverse when it's... Why would that be? Maybe because the feed dogs are down. That I don't know about because I don't do a lot of free motion quilting. but it doesn't go in reverse with the feed dogs down. And you can get special effects because even that one area where I went over it, so yes, it is different with a zigzag. That's my widest zigzag stitch at about the middle size circle. No, largest size circle. And that is about 3/4 of an inch. I can't reach the ruler. About 3/4 of an inch across. So that's as big as the circles get, and the two stitches do look different. So I think that clear disc changes them slightly. I have a tape measure. 1 inch. 1 inch circles. So there is the flower foot on both a 1591 with straight stitch and the 237 with zigzag. And I have to say, for what I was going to do with quilts, the zigzag looks like it has a little bit more punch to it than the plain circles. So about $4 at Amazon. There are more expensive versions, I believe. Maybe Brother makes one, maybe Singer makes one. But I bought the generic because I wasn't sure it was going to work. And I didn't want to spend like $15 or more for a foot if it wasn't going to work. That has happened to me before with a walking foot. So, but anyway, there it is. And now you can see that I have more decisions to make. I don't know where I'm going to put the machines because it's the furniture. Even if I move all the boxes out of here again and only keep tables in here, if I get a studio apartment, I have to add my bureaus, and I wanted to set up 2 beds. So, you know, table space is at a premium right now. I could just leave them all on the floor and pop them up on a table when I want to use them. At this point, that's probably what I'm going to end up doing.